Listen, it's hard to underestimate the ramifications of this nationally, national security, but also politically, and it's important because we're just about a month away from an election. So we want to discuss this. The president's positive test has upended what was intended to be the message of his campaign weeks before the election.
Let's get to our Ryan Nobles and Jessica Dean. They are both following the campaigns. Good morning to you both. Thank you for being here. Ryan, let's start with you. What is the reaction that you're hearing?
Well, the two big questions right now, Poppy, is what physically happens to the campaign? How do they handle the business of campaigning going forward? And then what, if any, campaign staffers are at the risk of exposure of coronavirus because they spend a lot of time around the president and his closest aides? So far, the campaign this morning not saying what steps they're taking to make sure that their campaign staffers are not at risk for contracting coronavirus, including campaign manager Bill Stepien, who traveled with the president to the debate on Tuesday, was in close contact with Hope Hicks at that time. So far, the campaign not saying if any of these senior advisors have been tested and what those results were. Now comes the second part of this question. How does this impact the campaign? Well, it's already having a very direct impact in that the president was scheduled to hold rallies today, all this weekend, and then into next week. Everything has been postponed at this point, essentially put on hold, and the campaign not saying how they plan to move forward. And then, of course, there is the issue of debates. The president and the vice president having their first debate on Tuesday. There's another debate scheduled next week with the vice president. So far, the debate commission not saying how they plan to move forward and if those debates will take place or if they will try and shift to some sort of a virtual format. But it's important to point out that at the last debate on Tuesday, where a potential exposure could have taken place, officials from the Cleveland Clinic actually went up to some of the guests that were there on behalf of the president, his family, close associates, and actually offered them masks to wear during this debate to prevent the spread of coronavirus, because there is the potential that someone at this debate could have had the coronavirus, as we now know they did, and they refused to put those masks on. So it just shows kind of the broad approach that the Trump campaign has had toward wearing masks. And of course, I've been to many of these rallies where, of course, Jim and Poppy, very few people are wearing masks.
And of course, at the debate, the president mocked Joe Biden for wearing the mask so regularly once again. Jessica, let's talk about the Biden campaign. We now know that he will be tested out of an abundance of caution. Tell us about their reaction this morning, level of concern.
Yeah, well, they're all still sorting that out as of right now, Jim. We have not heard officially from the Biden campaign, save for Vice President Biden tweeting that he was wishing the president and First Lady a speedy recovery and that he was thinking of them. But right now, here's what we do know. You mentioned that Vice President Biden is getting tested this morning. He is scheduled to travel here to Grand Rapids, Michigan this afternoon. It's unclear if he's going to go forward with those plans. Again, we're just waiting to see right now how that all plays out. Yesterday, the campaign announced that it would go forward with in-person canvassing, going door to door in all the battleground states. This came after months of them avoiding doing this because of COVID concerns. So now, today, with this news, it's unclear again. Does that impact this decision at all? The campaign had said, of course, all these safety precautions would be in place. But Poppy and Jim, you noted this as well. We're also learning this morning that the Biden campaign was not alerted by the Trump campaign about any possible exposure. We're going to keep an eye on this and see how it develops and what we hear from them as the morning continues.
Which is not just a question of etiquette, right? Letting folks know of a positive test. It is a question of public health. Ryan Nobles, Jessica Dean, thanks very much.
Let's bring in assistant editor